get to it?
Let's get to it.
Let's get to it. All right.
Are you recording?
2020. Yeah, I'm recording. Are you recording?
It says need your permission, but we can figure that out later.
Oh, I give you my permission, Jess.
Okay.
Did that work?
That works.
All right. We got a consensual 2020 Raise the Bar Season 3, Episode 2 podcast going live. Is that right? Did I say that right?
Number 2, yeah, that's what we're at, and it feels good to be back in the swing of things. To be honest, to have a little bit of routine on a Sunday, well, any routine in general, I feel like at this point is completely necessary to stay sane. I don't know about you, but
I usually have a pretty good routine. Actually, for the last little while, it feels a little more off routine, if anything, kind of going with the flow. But I guess rolling into dad mode with baby 3 any day now. Just got to kind of roll with the punches at this point. So maybe that's my practice for the week.
That's right. So you got to make sure that that baby comes out on one of the days that I bought on those squares for your little pool there.
Yeah. So today, May 3rd, is actually Cass's day, but I don't think he's winning any money today.
No, knock on wood.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. If I have to run from this pod, then we'll know where I'm going.
So it's the 15th. That's the due date.
That's the due date.
Jesus, we got butterflies or like what? I mean, it's your third time coming into the game here. Like, are you a practice veteran like Joe Thornton, or how are you feeling right now?
Oh, I'm no Jumbo Joe, that's for sure.
Well, I guess he's never won a cup, so that's a poor analogy.
Yeah, I think I feel more like I don't know, like Thomas Caberlet. Did he ever win anything? Or he just kind of went out there and somehow stayed in the show?
He might have been a Norris contender.
Yeah. No, every kid's different, right? Our first one, if you remember, the anatomy scan said it was a boy, so we got all hyped up and we went overboard with all the blues and the what do you call it? The baby shower pics. We're all wearing mustaches and all that sort of stuff. And then that was a girl. So that's, parenting curveball number 1, but it's all good because it's a healthy baby. Second one, we didn't quite make it to the hospital. We made it to the hospital parking lot and we had a kid born in the van. So at 4 a.m. on December 27th, saved by a midwife happening to go in to see another client. And number 3, pandemic baby. So yeah, man, we're just rolling with it at this point.
Good Lord. See, like those are things you can tell your kids when they're older, and that kind of builds their character. That's like their story. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. You look at the origin stories; they all got something. It's all good. Just
you have a cool birth story. Right? What was your birth story? Were you?
I don't quite recall. You mean my welcoming, like my grand entry?
Yeah.
I feel like something happened. I can't remember exactly what the story was. I was a pain in my mom's ass right from the day one, if I recall. I can't remember. I think it was like a really long labor, and then they may have lost the heartbeat for a while with me, or something was. Maybe the cord was around my neck. I can't remember. There was something dramatic, which explains why I'm so dramatic these days. What about you? Do you know yours?
All I know is I was a month early. I was supposed to be born on our Grandpa Charlie's birthday. That was my due date.
Yeah.
But I was a whole month early.
Wow. That's seriously early.
Yeah, the preemie.
Yeah. Are you preemie at that point?
I think so. Oh. Right? What's preemie considered?
We'll have to call Heather down here at some point. She knows all that stuff. All I know is we're full term and we're less than 2 weeks away from the due date.
Okay.
But yeah, no. So there's certainly that added sort of stressor and uncertainty. But hey, I mean, we're doing a home birth this time, so we'll see what happens.
That's incredible. Like to think of delivering a baby at home, like.
Heather and I were actually just talking about this today, and it sure beats delivering in the front seat of a Dodge Caravan. So we'll take it.
Touche. I guess she never really had to use like an epidural or anything then, eh?
For first baby, yeah. And then we didn't have a chance for anything but the good grace of God on the second one. I swear, man, that was crazy. Like, it was like 4:30. No, it was like 3:45-ish in the morning, and we're driving, and this thing was so surreal, this whole scenario. I mean, having a baby's already a pretty like weird existential moment, right? Where this like the creation of life and the unveiling of your child after 9 months of watching the belly grow and all this sort of like um, distant connection for the father, I guess, because you're kind of making that connection through your partner's belly, right? So,
Yeah.
so it's yeah, December 27th, quarter to four. We get into the parking lot and Arcade Fire's playing in the background. Like it just felt like you couldn't script this. Like it was crazy. I remember running into the hospital and telling the delivery team or the what do you call it, reception. I'm like, listen, I was like, my wife's having a baby. I need a mat team right now out in the front. We're not going to get her in. She's like, okay, well, who are you here to see? What's your doctor? What's your intake date? I'm like, I don't have time for this. So I book it out there. And at this point, I'm like, all right, I guess I'm delivering the baby. Like I sanitized my hands. I had my jacket off. I was ready to, get this baby out of there. And the funny thing was the day before I was reading How to Deliver a Baby just like as a joke. And then I was like, oh, maybe I'll need to know this. And didn't think I'd actually need to know it. And I'm like, okay, I guess we're going in and see what I recall from the last 24 hours. And
Oh my
I get a
God.
tap on my shoulder and it's this lady. She's like, oh, hello. She's like, I'm just on my way in to see my own client. She's like, and I heard some commotion. Is everything okay? I'm a midwife. I was just like, tag team, you're in. All right, get to it. So she just ended up saving the day. Like I swear, like someone from above sent her because there was no reason that we should have had the most perfect person walking by at that given time.
Do you remember her name?
Yeah, it was Erin. So that's actually Sav's middle name.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so she gets to carry a bit of that story with her.
Severa Aaron. Huh.
Yeah.
You got names on this one? Is that part of the secret?
Oh, we made the mistake of sharing a few names with a few family members, and the moment you do that, everyone has a negative connection or something to pretty much
Oh,
any
yeah.
name
It's
you can put
probably on the
forth.
Tyndanego Times there.
Mostly just the island on this side here, but yeah, no, it's funny because then you put a name for it, it's like, yeah, what about this? And they're like, well, I can't do that. I dated a girl in high school who had a neighbor's dog named that, and it's like, well, come on, how many degrees of separation are we going here?
I know. It's like you got to create a name at this point.
Yeah, it feels like we're doing that sometimes. We're trying like different spellings and all that stuff. So we've narrowed it down to a short list of about 15 to 35 names, and we'll go from there.
Wheel of Fortune.
Yeah, exactly. We're just gonna
Name
put
them
them
after
up on.
slot machines.
Yeah, we're just gonna throw it up on a dartboard and see what we hit.
Baby Rama.
Yeah, but this is kind of cool because with the home birth, we're going to take a bit of time and we're going to try and get to know her personality a bit and see if something kind of sticks out with us. But
Oh, you're going the
yeah,
hippie route.
yeah, a little bit, yeah.
Okay, that's cool.
Well, I don't know if you know this, but my sister Rachel wasn't actually Rachel for the first little while. I believe she was a Nicole.
Yeah, I heard something like that. I don't know exactly what the name was. Was it Nicole?
Yeah, I want to say that. I think I wanted to name her Wendy because I was obsessed with Peter Pan at that time. I mean, I was 5 years old. But they vetoed that one and
Not the
went with
burger chain?
Nicole. Yeah. I was thinking of naming this one Dave Thomas.
Have you switching gears here? Um have you been doing much traveling? Not to throw yourself under the bus or anything, but I mean, like I know essential work travel is necessary for work and stuff. But I just wondered if you've been anywhere on the side of the island by any chance for work or for any reason at all.
Nothing, man. I'm well with this baby coming, we're on kind of hyper lockdown, right? I
Yeah,
go out
true.
to, like I said last week, I go out to the dump once a week just to try and get rid of stuff that they might not be able to pick up on Fridays or whatever. But um, yeah, we today we just had to get out of the house. We did a little drive, just kind of almost to the checkpoint around Bidwell there, and then came back just to try and see something that wasn't our property.
How do
But
you guys
yeah,
break up the monotony of the day, especially with two little girls right now? Like, how are you guys spicing it up or like keeping things afloat?
we play a lot of crowns. We play some crib. This weekend in particular was a little slow. We're actually starting to feel a bit of the drain, as I'm sure a lot of people are. Like we're going on. Heather and I were actually just talking about this. It's more like 7 weeks that we haven't
7.
really been out of here. It's like no grocery store, no post office, no nothing like that. So yeah, we're definitely relying on the helping hand of family here. But yeah, it's we try to keep busy. The honey-do list keeps getting bigger and bigger here, so
Mm-hmm.
we're using this time to just try and get a bunch of stuff done. I'm pretty busy Monday to Friday, like during the week. Even this weekend, I'm on call, so there's calls here and there that come through and just sort of mitigating whatever's happening. But for the most part, we try to have a routine. Like during the work week, the kids have school in the morning, so they do that after breakfast, and then they have lunch, and they get playtime, and we have a bit of a routine. But certainly things are we're not too hardcore with it right now, just because everything's so up in the air with whatever's going to happen next. But Heather is actually asking too. She's like, what I'm really curious about is what other people's routines are. So I want to hear what your routine is to get through your sort of day to day. Does it differ from the work week to the weekend?
Um, yeah, in the sense that the weekend is a lot more relaxing. Um, Not to say that the work week is very stressful or strenuous by any means, but I've to begin with, like I'm just a very sedentary person by virtue, and I need to really be disciplined if I do want to go out and do something. In other words, I actually quite enjoy the excuse of staying home
But is it
for the
different?
most part.
Is it different when it's forced as opposed to your own free will of staying in bed and just chilling out on the weekend?
I think definitely for Nicole. Like Nicole finds that the being told to stay put is definitely mentally different. But for me, honestly, it's been the opposite effect. To be honest, to be told you have to stay home is like a treat of like, all right, I get to stay home and do what I got to do without that's my excuse. I don't have anything else to do because, and it really gives me the opportunity to look around in my immediate surroundings and say what needs to be done. So
Mm-hmm.
this weekend we raked the lawn, we cleared up the front and the back deck. Went to my mom's house to help tidy up the area over there.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Still getting the runs in though. I mean that's one of the things I was worried about. I had a gym membership before this whole pandemic thing, and I was going pretty consistently, and I was kind of nervous that that would end, or at least I would get lethargic again. But I've been hitting the road 4 or 5 times a week still, so I'm like that hasn't really been an issue in terms of getting in all those quadrants of the medicine wheel fulfilled. Like
Mm-hmm.
I would say I'm more physically active than I was prior to the pandemic for sure. Um, Emotionally, I'm at such a zen right now because I have the choice or the ability to kind of filter out what's coming into my realm of senses. And a lot of that is virtual, right? When you're at home, it's pretty easy between me and Nicole to kind of figure out what makes us happy and what makes us, well, the opposite of happy, right? So um, we've been able to filter out all that negative stuff, and it's been like rocking in that regard. And then spiritually, I've just been cranking out podcasts and lectures from like the most intellectual people, from like Jordan Peterson to Sam Harris, even some Lao Tzu, and learning about Taoism and
Mm-hmm.
Buddhism. And like I'm going down the rabbit hole and all kinds of different types of spirituality
Mm-hmm.
over the break. And then yeah, I mean mentally, physically and mentally, I think I've been rocking it. I don't
I
I
get
don't I don't really have anywhere else to go with that other than like
you're feeling good.
I'm feeling good, like, to be honest. Like and I feel like I'm rambling here at this point, but at this like the okay, let's go down the rabbit hole of this roadblock, because I think this is really where the breakdown of not only mental health in Qigong, and especially it's affecting me more so than anything. Um, but like, you don't have Facebook, eh?
No, I don't have an account or anything.
So, um,
But if you're going to tell me about how ugly it's getting, all of those comments are public, and any single person can type in Facebook Manitoulin Expositor into the Google search engine and follow what's going on. So I've certainly seen
yes,
the ugliness.
let me back up a little bit and explain for people just kind of figuring out what the heck's going on in Qigong. A couple of weeks ago, BCR was passed to block off, or at least have checkpoints, quote unquote checkpoints, at the entrances of all highways leading into the reserve, and then even the back roads too have been blocked off with physical barriers. Just the idea is to mitigate any non-essential travel coming into the reserve, so that we're mitigating that risk of getting COVID virus spread out throughout the reserve. Which, I mean, in theory is met with good intentions, but I think it was executed poorly. And it's easy for me to say. I'm not on I'm not in leadership anymore by any means, so it's easy for me to critique and say what the shortcomings are. But I think it's caused a lot more harm than positive, what it was meant to do. And that's not to say, it's not a good thing to want to kind of divert traffic around the First Nation to be a little bit on the safer side. But I think what we've been seeing a lot lately is a lot of divide on online, but a lot of hypocrisy too. There's a lot of hypocrisy being exposed on all levels, not only from the leadership point of view or the checkpoint itself. There's just a lot of inconsistencies with regards to who comes in and who doesn't, and it's not really being consistent with their screening criteria. And again, it's easy for me to say that. I don't really know for sure. This is just some testimonies I've been talking with the community and even people outside of the community who's been allowed in, who hasn't been allowed in. But I mean, that inconsistency has not only began this rift between people from Chiging and people living on the outside, but it's also starting to cause a lot of controversy and rift between people within the reserve, with community members are turning on each other. Mm. And you can see this all online too over the past couple of weeks. It's been actually sad to see the divide that's been going on, because it's coming from a negative place. I mean, people are scared. They don't know what's going on. They don't know what the predictability of this pandemic is going to be like. And they, when fear mixes in with miseducation and ego, it just becomes a very toxic environment. And you're seeing that online again. I've noticed a lot of people yelling racism on both sides. I try to avoid talking about racism, or not talking about racism, but at least crying wolf, or at least engaging in that kind of thing. You know what I mean? Like, it can be a very, pardon me?
It's an easy target to pull the racism into it.
I feel like a lot of people play think it's a get out of jail free card. You could use that in your argument, and you don't have anything that can be thrown against you because you have that as a shield. But then again, there's a lot of times when it is a valid point. Like, people are getting nasty, but I find you do a lot more harm when you start to use that card as a defense mechanism and start to build the divide and say, you just disagree with me because I'm First Nations, or whatever the argument may be. I hear that a lot, not only from the pandemic, and I mean, we can go on a rabbit hole about the whole politics of the intergenerational trauma and the way First Nations view non-First Nations and vice versa. I mean, it's a slippery slope for sure. But going back to my main point with the negativity on the roadblock, I heard the perfect analogy the other day, and it's like everybody's going for the body and nobody's remembering the puck. Yeah. Everybody's forgetting about the puck, and they're laying out the body, and they're forgetting the main objective. It's that we're here for one goal, and the main objective is to fight COVID. And whether we do that together or separately, we know what the outlook or the outcomes are going to be. They're going to be more positive if we're doing it together. And it seems like everybody's focusing on my side versus your side. This is your politics. These are my politics. You're on that side of the border. I'm on this side of the border. When
Hmm.
really COVID doesn't see borders. COVID doesn't care if there's a truck in the road blocking everybody from coming in. It's still going to get in. If you're letting non-essential travel or essential travel in and out, it's still going to happen. Whether you have Minamaya, Kagawang, and Honora Bay blocked from the reserve, if they all have COVID virus in them, it's going to leak in.
Hmm.
And that's the way we need to start looking at it is as a collective, and not this is my team and you're on that team, and because of these four factors or more, we can't work together.
Yeah, and maybe not focus on, the downfalls or the perceptive downfalls of what another community is doing, and just focusing on protecting your own, right? I think that's it. Is the goal for this is safety, and the goal is perseverance and resilience, and protecting who we can. It's interesting because I think about this quite a bit, not as much as those going through the community, obviously, but there's a few pieces to it. One, when you talk to people about it, um, all you're hearing is hearsay and anecdotal evidence, right? So it's always going to be a matter of perspective, no matter who's looking at it,
Yep.
unless you have some sort of genuine, valid survey or something to research the effects and look at all the different effects through an actual academic lens. And I know people don't like when you just, it's not about the academics, it's about what we're doing, it's about action, yada yada. Well,
Everybody's an expert right now.
yeah,
Exactly.
everyone's an expert with their minor in whatever it is, right? So I guess when you look at it, um, I would be very interested to see an actual study done by professionals on the efficacy of this thing. From the community standpoint, you look at it, the efficacy, like, is it efficiently doing what it's trying to do, which is keep people out? So it is an efficient measure of what they're trying to do. What are the residual effects of that? I'm sure there's plenty, right? Both internally and externally, and kind of in that intersection in between both community members and non-community members. And certainly when you have any sort of physical or perceived divide, you're going to create othering, right? And then you go back to those kind of traditional, not even traditional, but those primitive sense of tribalism and all that stuff. It's always a survival battle, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know where a lot of this kind of ugliness and hatred and vitriol is all coming from, but I think at the end of the day, what's happening is a lot of people are given a platform and an opportunity to really show some true colors and some deeply rooted um, maladaptive thought and behavior, right? Like some of those things that maybe never were resolved or never given the time to create understanding and growth. Because a lot of this stuff seems like you're looking right back at like some of the slang from like 40s, 50s, 60s, right? It's that divide, that us and them, and all this type of stuff. And I think hypothetically, and it would be nice to see everyone past that, where we can kind of look at things for strength-based through a strength-based lens, and looking towards resolution and unity and working together. But we're just not at that maturity level as a society. And we see that not even just on Manitoulin, but people protesting in Toronto, right down at Queen's Park, like protesting the lockdowns and things like that. Like, I just don't think we're mature enough as a species to have this type of intellectual debate, and to really, like I said last week, to operate through that lens of compassion and benevolence. Like, we need to be more kind, and we need to kind of, you don't have to respect what people are doing, but you have to respect their right to do it. And that might, some people will take that either way, right? Some people say, well, it's my right to go through the checkpoint and I'm going to drive right on through. But that's not what respect really is, right? Because if you're doing something just on principle and because you can, that doesn't mean that there's respect, right? It's almost the exact opposite at that point. So I don't know. It's interesting. I don't know how long it's going to last, but I think there was always some deeply rooted tension on Manitoulin. One, because it's operating at a different pace than a lot of the kind of more populated areas. But yeah, this is really given that, it's been that catalyst to bring it back up to the front. And maybe that's good. Maybe we need to see this stuff, and we need to start thinking, how do we have these conversations differently, and how do we, like, this is supposed to be a post Truth and Reconciliation Canada, so
Mhm.
we can say not everything has to be about race, but at the end of the day too, everything will always have a racial tone when you're talking about First Nations issues, whatever it is, historical or contemporary, in this day and age. That's just kind of the reality of the makeup of Canada and the history and some of the pain and some of the growth that's needed. Right, when you have First Nations involved, there's always going to be that racial tension, and some people will see that as an opportunity to jump in and kind of put forward hate and animosity and try to rally troops. And it's a pretty scary thing, because I mean, I think a lot of times that's our default. And when we go online and we do these things, or when people aren't sharing to listen and learn. People are sharing to either virtue signal or to bully or to try and make someone else see their way. There's no humility in the online platform. The humility piece is recognizing your place and being open to those other perspectives and to that respect and to other ways of living and knowing and doing, right? But from either side, I see, it's not being done in a good way.
That's a good point with the platform thing. Um, you're right. The humility is taken away when your primary source of communication is through text, right? Through font and through you're eliminating that human element. And that is a good point. And that's why I actually deleted Facebook on my phone this week. Um, just because I caught myself um, wanting to chime in as well and wanting to kind of offer my comments as well. But at the end of the day, that doesn't improve the dialogue in either direction. People are already going to do what they're going to do and say what they're going to say, and it doesn't matter what kind of positivity you're going to offer in that format of text in a public forum. It's going to get scanned over, and the next person's going to chime in with their negativity,
Mhm.
and you're just kind of left.
Well, and it's interesting too, because people are already so much on the defensive when you're in that public platform, right? You want to protect your opinion, you don't want to get hurt. Social media is a lot like gambling, in the point where it was good because it initially triggered our pathway, or our reward pathway, and kind of like releasing dopamine and all those kind of good things. Positive affirmation, getting a like, all that sort of stuff, seeing like a cat video, whatever it is. But now, because of our inability to have proper two-way conversation, people go on the defensive. So not only are they typing in that hyper defense or aggressive way, but they're also reading it in that way. So the lens is already altered. And like you said, you're taking away that human element. So you're already projecting maybe some of your own insecurities or some of your own tensions or your own history when you start reading something based on the content. So
Mm-hmm.
there's no real winning way to have that conversation. Actually, it's funny. I think I can't remember what it was. Like, I don't really social media too often, but every now and then I would used to like 9gag and Reddit and all that sort of stuff. So I don't remember which one it was, but I remember there was a contentious issue about something or other, and I just kind of said my piece. I rarely comment on things, but I just said it because I was like, oh, might as well. Like, I have something to say, so I'll say it. I have a username and I have a place to comment, so I did it. And the person came back and just like unleashed it. It was like George Carlin's 7 words you can't say. Like, they just tore into me. I was like, "Ooh, that didn't feel so nice." And I was like, and my natural response was, I want to just challenge this guy. Like, you don't know me. You don't know what I've been
Yep.
through. You don't know my experience. You're only speaking from your lens. Like, get off your pedestal. All these things. But instead, what I did was like, "Hey, thanks for taking the time to comment. I appreciate your opinion. That's something I didn't think of, but I'll take into consideration. Have a good day." And then I just left it at that. I didn't even really respond to the comment. I just thanked him for commenting on it. Like, there was thousands of comments on this thing, and he picked mine to chew into for whatever reason. And then it was funny. The next day, I saw a notification on whatever the platform was, and it was the guy responding. He's like, "You know what?" He's like, "Thank you for responding that way. That actually kind of brought me back down." He's like, "I wasn't expecting that. I was ready to battle." He goes, "I hope you have a good day, sir." And he
See
goes,
that? See? Oh, sorry.
I was just gonna say, like, it threw it for a loop, like a little bit of kindness. The guy didn't know what to do. Like, he was already ready to attack. I'm like, "Dude, why you got your boxing gloves on here, man? Like, we're just
Yeah.
trying to have coffee, like a tea and talk." And I thought for me, that was kind of like, that was my understanding of, like, as a globalized platform with this platform where we can all chime in. We're not ready for that because people are just so angry, and there's a lot of anger, there's a lot of anxiety, and there's a lot of dispute, discussion, and disagreement. And that's okay. We're allowed to disagree. We have the right to disagree and to agree to disagree. And now it's just too easy, the accessibility piece. We're not ready to just put our comments down everywhere without thinking. Like, I think we're meant to sit with our thoughts and refine and process and maybe change our own view a little bit and present it and maybe have it challenged in a good way and then think about it. And it's supposed to be more holistic in conversation, not just you need to see my way or you're wrong.
I feel like what you said earlier, um, that you had those two options. Your first inclination was I want to respond negatively and I want to attack this guy. I feel like that's the latter route that you took is a skill that needs to be developed. That's not something that's innately in us. I don't think anyway. I think we want to challenge. I think we want to respond in the I'm the alpha ape here, and I don't know if that is the philosophy behind it, is to prove that you're the alpha ape, or if it's something deeper with regards to insecurities. But um, you need to teach yourself to do the proper thing and to be the person that lets it slide and understand. You don't need to fight every single battle that comes in front of you. If there's a bear, you can choose to go the other way. You don't have to fight it every time. You're
Mm-hmm.
just going to wear yourself out. And you can see people who are worn out from that, and they don't know how, even in their 40s and 50s, they don't know how to disengage and say, I'm going to let this one slide.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know where that's taught. I don't think it's taught in school. It's not taught. Um, it's not taught commonly. It needs to be.
It needs to be practiced.
It
I
needs to be
think
practiced, but it needs to be experienced. But where does that come from?
I don't know. It's a good question. Um, yeah, I think I took a lot of kind of role modeling from my old man. He's pretty chill, but I naturally don't do that. But as I get older, the more I try to think, like, is the juice worth the squeeze, right? Like, is this something that for a 30-second comment, or maybe someone sitting there and typing it for 3-4 hours till they get everything just right and all the points they want to say, is it what's the return on investment? Like, everything I do, whether emotional, mental, physical, financial, whatever it is, I'm trying to look at, for the most part, is there a return on this investment? Is there a return on this energy? Is there a return on this input? And is that return positive, or is it something that I'm going to carry and going to weigh me down? That's the theory. It doesn't always work out that way. Obviously, I'm
Mm-hmm.
only human, as is everyone who should be thinking this. But yeah, I don't know. It's certainly something that you teach in a lot of like acceptance and commitment therapies, right? And the ability to kind of have things roll off you and accept things and compartmentalize and have those conversations. But it's not practice enough, and I think it's too easy for people to evoke an emotional response from strangers on the internet. And I have never once in my life heard, other than maybe this one time, in the middle of a comment thread, someone's like, "Oh, good point. I never thought of it that way. Thanks for changing my mind." Like, once you
Yep.
get that challenge, you just dig your heels in that much more deeper.
And I
Um,
can't be wrong. Yeah,
mm,
exactly.
mm,
And you just want to fight. And when you start to add in insecurity and fear and not knowing what's going to happen, and the reality that death could be coming at your doorstep, and you don't know what the consequences are of this pandemic, like that's going to really take a toll on your emotional stability, your mental stability, everything. And I think that is contributing to the mindset of how people are coming at these issues online and in person. Um, so then how do we mitigate those catalysts for fear and anxieties and for that emotional spike? How can we bring those levels back down in a positive way so that we can logically think, yeah, you know what? The investment and the return on investment doesn't necessarily add up. So this is what we're going to do. Hey, maybe if we do work together, this is going to be a more logical approach to this than everybody for themselves. And I think that's where we need to start focusing on, is how do we mitigate those things, so then again that logical brain starts to do what it needs to do.
mhm.
I don't
Well,
have the answers, but
there's a few pieces to that. I think it starts with genuine reflection. You need to actually take a step back from what you're doing and kind of look at it almost from that external brain, if you can. If you have an honest mirror, someone who you can have that honest conversation with, that's good. But if you're just kind of in it on your own, you need to reflect and be aware, first of all. And you need to be committed to change. You need to know what that change is. You need to know what direction it is. Um, you can think about what your ideal person is, like how do you operate, how do you react, how do you have conversations, what is the person you want to be in the community, and genuinely look at it and say, am I there? If not, what's missing? And sometimes it might be that interpersonal reaction or connection. It could be anger, it could be shame, it could be blame, it could be something deeply rooted. Not everyone needs to necessarily go out and get a counselor if they have the cognitive capacity to do that cognitive reframing, but it certainly helps to have someone, whether it's a partner, a cousin, a mother, grandpa, grandma, whatever it is, a best friend, like someone who you can have honest conversations with, and someone who's not going to necessarily enable bad behaviors. And I shouldn't say bad behaviors, but maladaptive behaviors. And I think from that reflection and that awareness, that only works if it's genuine and honest. Like if you look at things through an honest lens, and part of that is parking your ego. But our egos are inflated. Mine is. I have a seriously inflated ego, and I'm aware of that. And I try to bring myself back down from time, but I certainly get caught away with it too, or caught running away with it as well. And I think that's it. Is we have to be honest with ourselves before we try to get honest with other people.
And sometimes it's good to have an inflated ego in certain situations. That could be a very powerful leadership tool to utilize. And it's just picking those moments of when to use these bags of tricks and when to tuck them away. And, you said something earlier with regards to having that positive role model to kind of teach you that, and to have that as your learning tool, that your Mr. Miyagi was your dad. You know what I mean? And with that regard, to develop that Zen, and to identify how to approach these situations, because I know your dad's probably one of the most Zen guys I've ever met in my entire life.
Right.
And I definitely have learned a lot from that approach, to things. And a lot of people don't have that opportunity, though. A lot of
Mm-hmm.
people don't have, a Carmen or a Chucky or somebody positive to kind of show you how to react in those situations. It's a systemic trauma, I guess you would call it,
Mm-hmm.
that disallows people from experiencing the positivity. And I think that's the cycle that we see more so, not only on Manitoulin Island and in our First Nations, but I mean, just in low income areas, in drug ridden areas like our communities. And I think you need to just try to infiltrate that with the Trojan horse, with small little love bombs.
Yeah.
Little,
Yeah.
little
Absolutely.
That's what you need to do. Little love bomb every now and then. Just throw in a little bit of I'll buy your coffee, or this is some sort of positive reinforcement that you need to hear that you probably haven't heard at home. This is I think a little love bomb goes such a long way in the right circumstance, and even in the poor circumstances. Sure, a love bomb. What's the consequence of throwing out a love bomb and it not getting the effect that you expected it to get? I mean, it's still a positive direction of good energy, and I think that's all it is.
Yeah.
Like
And
love bombs. When I say love bomb, I don't mean show a love of throw the garbage bag full of love notes to somebody. Like actually, like just something positive
say
energy.
anything moment with the
The
stereo outside the
kamehameha
window.
of positive reaffirmation or positive energy. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I think too, in doing something like that, doing it for the right reasons and doing it just to put good in the world and not for the expectation of return. So not doing it to say, go home and be like, hey, guess what I did today, and not seeking praise for that, but to kind of do it for a genuine, organic piece of good in the world. Um, yeah, I think that's right. And even holding a door open for someone when we could go out and hold doors for people and that sort of stuff. So I guess how do you do that now? Probably a good first step is not engaging in conflict on the internet.
Yeah.
Maybe it's not even a love bomb, but it's just holding back the hate bombs.
Yeah. I think it takes a lot of introspective analysis first and foremost. You need to kind of reflect on your own ticks and talks and what kind of makes you function, what your triggers are, and then realize, understand self before you can understand the rest of the world.
Hmm. And this brings back to when we talked a bit about globalization last week. I mean, that's when I think we can use the internet for good. You can go on and you don't have to go go just on social media platforms where there's a common thread. You can go out and you can look up inspirational stories, right? And you can try and look at things for the good and draw that and filter out all the BS and all that other kind of stuff that comes with it. I think we have a really kind of unique opportunity to draw from inspiration that we wouldn't normally see in just our communities right now. So I guess going back to the other part, when you look at some of the socioeconomic realities of some of our communities, you got to ask, like, where are the values and where is the inspiration and the motivation being drawn from? Is it being drawn from other cultures that kind of push that stuff up on a pedestal, whether it's slinging drugs or, you know, holding cash and fat stacks and all that sort of stuff? And is that where you create your value? You know what I mean? Like, I think we have to look at who our role models are and who are positive role models, because there's certainly a lot of people of influence that aren't necessarily good role models.
And
And being
this is the most important time to reevaluate those values. Figure out what are your values, because I mean, people are losing their jobs. People are concerned about their family's health and sickness, and it's true. Like, you got to start to reevaluate, and this has kind of been a kick in the ass that maybe people. I don't like to say people need it, because it's always horrible when you consider how many people are dying and negatively affected from a pandemic. But like this is the catalyst to really start thinking, like, do I really not like this person, or am I angry because I don't have work right now, or am I worried that I don't have the economic means to sustain my family? Like, there's a lot of different things that people can be writing down and starting to consider, what the value systems are, so that you are able to see those triggers and be able to react better and more positively.
Yeah, for sure. And it's funny too, like going back, like I think social media was initially meant to be this kind of like surface level tool for connection where you can kind of send messages and all that sort of stuff. And we've just put so much emotional attachment into everything that happens on there. And it's become such a um, staple in everyday life. Like, I don't know how many times, and I notice this especially since not being on the Facebook, how many people start conversations with, "Oh, did you see on Facebook?" And like,
Mm-hmm.
it's just such a driving force of everything that we do, right? But going back to last week too, when we talked about progress traps, you start to wonder if social media is a progress trap. Like, has it got to the point where it is now past its own efficacy, and is it no longer achieving the good that it was meant to achieve, and is it becoming destructive at this point? Like, has social media become our mammoth run where we're about to just kind of destroy all those connections and throw them off the cliff, and that's the end of that situation?
Yeah, you know what? I think that's a good argument too, especially with the whole election scandal. When Trump got in there, that's a good point. Like, is it doing more harm than positivity at this point? I mean, it's still doing what it needs to, what it was initially intended to do, which was bring people together positively and at least connect people in a way that you wouldn't be able to connect any other way prior to social media. But like you said, there's consequences with that as well. So how do you weigh that out, and what are the value systems from that?
Yeah, and I think there's just a lot of triggers for anxiety and sadness and comparison and all these other things there. Like, when I look at it, and I don't know, this is just kind of just spitballing right now, it seems like you're either distracted by someone else's, good post, or by food or whatever you're following. So it's either a distraction or it's a trigger for anxiety. And you're looking at something that's there's not really a lot of mindfulness in some of the things, and then, or it's overly mindful with like positive affirmation and sharing all these things, and even that can get tiring really quick too, right? When you're seeing all these positive quotes day after day. I think we need to find that inspiration away from the computer, away from the screen, and that sort of stuff, and we have to be really mindful with how we interact and how we consume that media, right? If we're at a point where we're like constantly checking it, despite getting anxious, it's just it's a really negative and destructive pattern of behavior that can be hard to break, especially when it's so accessible. You wake up, your phone's right there, your phone's probably your alarm, you can pop it open and see your notifications first thing in the morning. Like, that doesn't seem like a good thing to start your day with.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what I found myself doing, is, not only as the alarm, but that just goes into, well, let me just check my Snapchat notifications, see if I got any Instagram notifications. Oh, let's see what's going on Facebook. Next thing you know, you wasted half an hour in bed. Now you got to rush to the shower, and it's totally not a very positive start to your day by any means, because it's just like that addiction and that little, you're chasing that little dragon every day of like, what's new, what am I going to learn, what am I going to get ahead in knowing today.
Hmm. But it's funny because your primitive brain doesn't react and understand what it's doing. What it's doing is being randomly rewarded with these micro awards, and it feels good, right? Like it feels good to see those notifications. And if you
Yep.
wake up and you don't have anything, but you're expecting a post to have a certain amount of likes, then that on the opposite, it feels bad. So social media operates on that reward framework, right? It's like gambling. Um, you go out and you're not going to win every time you pull it, but when you hit it, you feel good. It's that release of dopamine. It's all that kind of stuff, right? It's that reward pathway. We really have to be careful with it because it's not something that we're equipped to handle, like biologically and neurophysically, like speaking, or neurologically speaking. It was just it's beyond, the technology is beyond us as a species. And I don't think we're, like I said, I don't think we're mature enough to have it.
What about kids growing up today? Like you and I, we were just at that end of the bubble where the internet was like taking off. I think YouTube launched in like '06 or something, and like there's a whole chapter of my life prior to the internet, and definitely in your life too. You were probably in '06. What were you?
I would have been, how old would I have been?
18?
Well, yeah, 18. Yeah, that was my first year of uni, '06.
Yeah, so you have a whole life prior to this hyper attention to the internet.
I remember Facebook coming out and YouTube coming out while in college, and I feel like my marks would have been way better if I didn't have either of those.
Yeah, exactly. And then, you look at kids these days now, like I'm thinking of your girls, and they're going to grow up in a world where all they ever knew was the iPad. All they ever knew were these applications that programmed how they view the world and what their value systems are. That's kind of a freaky thing.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's kind of the same thing as it's that generational hop, right? In terms of technology, like our parents probably look at us and like, what the hell are they talking about, and what do they have? But now they have the same sort of technology as we do too, right? So I think
Hmm.
whatever it is, we'll have some sort of fraction of it, and we'll have some sort of fractional understanding of whatever it is they're doing. But I think at the end of the day, now just kind of reflecting now, I think my goal from this point forward is to make sure that it's not an unbalanced influence in terms of what they need to draw their influence and their support from, and their validation. Really, you
That's
don't
the
want,
big piece, the
yeah,
validation.
yeah. And again, that's that whole reward pathway too, right? It's you're constantly rewarded with that validation and feeling good, or you're being cyberbullied, or somewhere in the between. Like it's a pretty large spectrum of interactions with the internet.
Hmm. And especially being like a young girl too, like um, the validation piece has got me thinking a lot too. Like, if I were to ever raise kids at this point, like how do you moderate that as a parent, or can you? Like, is it um, how much freedom do you allow somebody to develop in this un uncharted world with consequences on each side? If you like, if you're allowing them the freedom to go on and use the internet, and I'm not saying don't use the internet, but there's consequences for that, allowing that, and then there's consequences for shielding them from that and saying, you, this is not healthy, don't go there. You know what I mean? Like when I kind of use a parallel of when we were kids, our parents always said, um I don't want you staying out too late, or I don't want you, going over to that person's house because I know they smoke or whatever, and that makes you want to do it even more. You want to go out at dark. You want to see what it's all about to smoke. And like, how I guess what I'm saying is really something that's a bigger picture of raising kids in general. But like, the internet is such a powerful force that's going to mold the minds of billions of people to come.
Hmm. I think we just need to keep it simple. We need to look at it as a tool. So whatever it is, you can pull anything out of your toolbox, and you can build something with a hammer and nails, or you can break into someone's car, or you can kind of bang your thumb. So it depends on how versed you are with the tool, how comfortable you are, and what your intention is. Like, I think that's really what, we have to have those conversations, and it's going to be a lot different than the conversations we had. But I think in the same way, when you look at that parental role, the parental role is always going to be to kind of protect and educate and support, and to help them become, good contributing community members, or to whatever that means to them, and to be able to, um, cope with everyday stressors and move forward in a good way, and to give them the tools that they need to move forward in whatever way they see fit towards achieving their goals and having some sort of, positive trajectory. So I think we have to make sure that the internet isn't the be all end all of everything, but look at it for what it is, right? And there's more to the internet than just Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, whatever else you have, right? It is a tool, and it's a very powerful tool, like you said, but it can be definitely misappropriated, and certainly a tool for distraction as well.
It just hijacks our innate nervous system. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%.
I feel like I've been rambling for most of this episode.
That's kind of what a pod is, isn't it? We're just here to kind of shoot the breeze.
I guess so. I think I'm kind of almost ranted out with regards to the stuff that's been firing me up this week.
Yeah. Do
On
you
a more
feel like you?
positive note. Oh, sorry.
Oh, I was gonna say, do you feel like you got a bit of it out though?
Oh, 100%. This is just stuff I've been thinking about lately. And I know a lot of people that may or may not listen to our podcast are thinking about these things too, and they don't necessarily know how to approach it. And I think, well, positivity is the best way to approach it, and with love. Um, not just this, but with whatever you do,
Mm-hmm.
try to approach it from a perspective of love. And how can I promote the next second with more positivity than the previous second, or
Mm-hmm.
not second, but moment, or at least instance or interaction.
Mm-hmm. And that's part of that reflection, awareness, and growth too, right? Like, it's not about being the ultimate version of yourself in and changing 180 or 360 or 1080, whatever, however many turns you need to do in a minute or in a night. It's just about growing a little bit each day and taking the reflection and trying to be a better person, or doing something different, or doing something good each day, right? And then what it is the culmination of all those actions and all those little pieces and steps that makes you who you are down the road. So each day you can take a step forward, a step back, or you can stay in the same place. It's up to you. And I think when we start looking at things through a matter of control and commitment and motivation and accountability, then we can move things forward in a good way. Or if we're not moving forward, then we're at least aware that we're not moving forward, and you're okay with it for that day, and it's okay. But I think if you don't have those pieces in place, then things can spiral out of control, and that's when you start seeing things too, right? The external locus of control, like an example that one of the professors used in some online course I was looking at was like the external locus of control. If someone fails a test, the external locus of control is saying, "Well, that test was too hard. No one could have passed that." But the internal locus of control is someone who says, "I could have studied a little harder." Right. So it's taking control away from all these external factors and all these external pieces and all these variances, and regaining that control. And that's empowering. That's what empowerment is, right? It's the ability to have ownership, direction, and control, and be able to make moves and feel good about it, right? And have, but of course, that internal control can be influenced by external factors. There's nothing wrong with that. But at the end of the day, you need to have some semblance of control, right? You need to hold on to the reins, or that horse is just going, no, who knows where it's going.
Yep. I like the quote, live your life like you're the main star of your own movie, right? And how do you want that movie to be? Is it a tragedy? Is it a comedy? Is it a adventure thriller? You get to write it, and that's the best part.
Mm-hmm. Well, one that I've been kind of floating with for the last couple of years was who was it? I think it was a Young quote. It was about aging, right? And it was saying aging is the process, or isn't the process of inexorable decline, but rather a refinement of the essentials. So it's looking at, what do you need? What is your essential service or your essential needs on a day to day to bring forward with you? And like, if you're
Exactly.
going on to whatever, like Facebook, like we're talking about for pretty much this whole podcast, is that essential? Like, do you need to have those battles? Is that doing any good? Are you changing any minds? Like, a lot of times if you say something, it's to share something, and it's to help kind of grow and have dialogue and to learn and to share, and like, it's a two-way street, right?
Hmm.
So are you getting that when you're saying anything at any given point? I like to think I am, but I certainly have some battles with the girls that show otherwise. where my maturity just goes down about 3 or 4 points. But
I can just imagine what it's like to battle a 5-year-old that's smarter than you, because Maddie is a freaking smart kid.
oh, Savvy's right there too, man. They team up
Tag
too.
team.
Oh yeah, it's going to be 3 of them against probably 4 of them. Heather will join them. Like I'm outnumbered here, but it's all good. It'll toughen me up a little bit. Okay, so going back to last week, our special was a lot about, or not our special, our weekly challenge was about
Challenge.
healthy eating and that sort of stuff. So I want to check in with you. How did your healthy eating go? And I have 3 questions for you. 1, what was your most innovative meal? What was your favorite meal? And 3, what was your healthiest meal?
Ooh, that's a good one. Let me go back to my journal here, because I know I rocked it all the way up until yesterday.
That's fair.
Yesterday, I didn't necessarily have very positive food intake. Let me see what I
Hey,
did
everything in
here.
moderation, including moderation.
Yeah. I would say the most healthiest meal I had was just a garden salad with lemon water. That day, it was a huge salad, and um, it
Did
was
it
it
fill
was
you up?
really it was really hard. Yeah, it filled me up, and I didn't feel cravings or anything to eat at the end of the night. I think well, I think I wasn't so hungry because I did have a little bit of a carb heavy breakfast. Unfortunately, I did have English muffins in the morning with peanut butter. But I mean, again, it's that balance, right? I would say my favorite meal, um, we had spiced chicken thighs
Ooh, nice.
and corn on the cob and asparagus. Nicole makes this asparagus in the oven that's so freaking good. Oh my god! And um, a little bit of tea with my favorite HC in it. You know what I mean? It was really a well-rounded meal. Um, and what was the third question? I feel like I'm missing one.
So
What
we did
was the
innovative.
most innovative? See, yeah, in terms of innovation, I don't think I was very innovative. It was really more along the lines of what's convenient and positively, part of this criteria of healthy food, healthy eating. It had to have at least, you know, um, 60% vegetable, in my opinion, or it had to be at least 50% vegetable to be considered a positive meal.
Mm-hmm.
I noticed you had a pizza there the one night. How was that? Like, what's a vegan pizza like?
That was my favorite meal. It wasn't vegan. Definitely a lot of cheese on there. But we've been trying to go a different way with our pizzas. So we're doing a lot of we do some thin and thick sliced tomatoes depending on the week. We just kind of like pepper it up and we spice it up and we put like Italian seasoning on it and we just load the veggies on it. So we make our own dough from scratch and then we roll it out. And then once that's ready, we do a little tomato sauce, the spiced tomatoes, chili flakes, some Italian seasoning, mushrooms, peppers, olives, all that good stuff, and then a little bit of cheese with some Parmesan cheese on top. And it is just my favorite meal ever. I was going to say that is my favorite meal, hands
Yeah,
down. Yeah. Oh yeah. My most innovative one this week was I did some vegan fish and chips with for Heather. So I made some like tofu
oh
sliced or tofu battered fish type thing. It tasted a lot better than it looked and sounds. I think it was called like tofish, and they need to come up with a new name for that because that sounds absolutely awful. But essentially, just cut these little kind of fillets, and then you batter it, and you put a little bit of nori on top, and it gives this like really oddly fish taste. So we did the fish, and it was good, but it was a little heavy. And then the next day, this was my favorite meal, or my other favorite meal. We made those into tacos. We did fish tacos with them, and they were absolutely delicious. So you had like the tomatoes, the lettuce, some salsa, and all that sort of stuff. And it was no, we didn't do salsa, hot sauce, and it was absolutely banging. It was real good. Yeah, not bad.
what kind of hot sauce did you use?
I just went with a Frank's this time. I didn't want to I still wanted to taste the food because I wasn't sure what it was going to taste like. And Frank's goes on everything. Put that shit on everything.
Yeah, because the reason I ask is I got probably 15 hot sauces in my fridge, as I know you do as well.
Mm.
And I made chicken wings on Friday, and oh my god, those were the hottest wings I've ever had. I accidentally put too much of the Carolina Reaper sauce in, and cheapers creepers.
Nice. Very nice. So would you call the week a success? Were you actually cooking with intention at least once a day and kind of being thoughtful with your intake?
Yeah, so it did force me to it almost gave me a little bit of anxiety come Friday because I was starting to like realize like, you know what, I want wings tonight, and like the morning didn't have such a great breakfast because I knew I had granola and yogurt, which isn't necessarily the most healthy thing to have.
Mhm.
But it definitely did get me thinking again positively, and really starting to put myself more accountable for what I'm eating, especially with the snack foods too, man. Like even the snack foods, I'm like thinking, you know, you got to have a positive meal later. Like how much do you want to eat now? And it got me thinking, and that's kind of the thing I miss, is having a little bit of a challenge to be like, oh, I know I could cheat right now, but my honor says, you know what, Matt's going to be doing the same thing. So it's nice to have a little bit of a community sense. And I hope people that listen to this at least try to dip their toes in the weekly challenge too. I think that's the point of it.
Yeah, and let us know what you're doing either on Instagram or we have a Gmail. I don't recall what it is off the top of my head, but maybe we'll do Instagram as our main form of communication with folks. If they have
Yeah.
any ideas with things that we can do, and any topics that they want to hear us kind of explore, or any guest features that they'd like to see. I think I'd like to see a little bit of that, and try and get more community into this too. Maybe we'll start looking at some guests in the next week or so.
Yeah. Maybe we should start a hashtag RTB weekly challenge.
Yeah, let's do it. What are we gonna
RTB
do
weekly
for
challenge.
what are we oh, before we move on to what we're gonna do this week, which I don't think we know
I
yet,
got
but
I got something in mind. I'm making one this week.
okay, cool. Heather made these bomb cookies today. They're these like I don't know what she did. It was this oatmeal that was made into like a little cookie, and then she put a bit of jam on the top of each of them, and then she drizzled like a bit of peanut butter on top of them. No sugar other than like the peanut butter and the jam, but this tasted so good, man. It was like a oatmeal peanut butter and jam sandwich. Like they were so good. Yeah, I ate way too many of those, and then I had a few Oreos. It was a slippery slope today. But then we had it.
Oreos.
But then we had our which are vegan. I didn't know what meat
Really?
would have been in there,
Even the
but
cream?
yeah. Surprisingly, I didn't know. But
That's
now,
terrifying.
but now you know. See, so it's not that bad. There's some good vegan options out there. Oreos probably the top of the list. Um, but yeah, so but then we followed it up with a really healthy dinner tonight. It was like a quinoa bulgur salad with some cauliflower and peppers, and we did some avocado on the side, and yeah, it was really good. It was tasty. It actually surprisingly kept me full too. I was surprised.
Quinoa's pretty good for that.
Yeah. It was
Do you find yourself drinking more coffee or less coffee right now?
my coffee intake's been the same for like 2 years. I
Yeah.
make like not even a half pot, just under a half pot every morning. It's brewing by the time I get up in the old Hamilton 2-for-1. And then
Nice.
I just kind of sip on that new coffee first thing in the morning with a little bit of almond milk, and then usually have a second one, and then a third before lunch. But like the small mugs, not like those giant, massive camping mugs or anything
The
like
big
that.
Weck mugs.
Yeah, no, nothing like that. I think that whole pot would probably fill like maybe one of those. But yeah, what about you?
I think my coffee intake's definitely gone down. When I was at work, in the office, I was definitely drinking like 4 cups, 4 big cups a day. Maybe even, yeah, about 4 cups. Now I'm have my 1 cup in the morning, and I'm pretty rocking for the rest of the day.
Yeah.
I'll maybe have a second cup in the afternoon, but the
So
craving's not there.
what do you think the difference is? Is it a craving or accessibility when it's there?
I can't say it's accessibility because we have a Keurig in the office, and I got a
Mm,
Keurig at home too, and it's
yeah,
always like an arm's reach.
yeah.
I think it's more of just my environment.
Mm.
I'm working on a couch. There's a TV there. You know, I got the lake outside. I feel like going outside is more of a wake up than drinking coffee ever was. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
When it's nice and you see the weather starting to change, I'll go outside and walk in the lawn in my bare feet for a couple of minutes, and then that's more of a pick me up than in 1 or 2 cups of coffee.
yeah. Well, and especially you got that view that you have too.
Oh, right on the lake.
Yeah, picture perfect. Okay, what do you got for
Picture.
this week, man?
So the weekly challenge this week that I had in mind was a two-parter. The first part not too difficult, but I'm wanting to start upping my water intake.
Mm.
So I challenge you to drink at least 3 liters of water a day. 3 liters.
Is that a lot or a little? I don't know.
I think the recommended is 2.5. So just pushing it a little bit above. I think I could be wrong with that. It could be 4. That's the recommended daily. So I think 2 is recommended.
Okay.
So I
Well, the
think
first.
sorry.
Oh, I was gonna say I just googled it because I'm not sure if that's good or bad. And the first thing it says is 10 reasons to drink 3 liters of water a day.
Oh, perfect.
Healthfitnessrevolution.com.
Right on the money. 3
Yeah,
liters.
that's as far as my research is going today. But yeah, I'll definitely up the water intake. I'm good with that.
Okay, so three liters of water a day, and I don't care how you measure it, whether you're using plastic bottles. You don't use plastic bottles, actually.
Mhm. Seems
Um,
that seems that seems like a lot. 3 liters of water.
well, you
You,
think of like a big 2 liter of Pepsi. Like I know a lot of Indians that live down the road that'll drink a 2 liter of Pepsi a day. So we're just doing
I
water.
don't think I've had 2 liters of Pepsi this year.
In my life, I wasn't allowed to have Pepsi as a kid.
Okay, so increase water
Yeah,
intake. Part one.
three,
What else we
three
got?
liters of water intake, part 1, and then part 2 isn't necessarily a dietary challenge. It's more of a mental challenge. I want you to allocate at least 6 days, and you can define the criteria of how much time you want to invest, um, learning or relearning a new skill.
Nice. I've been learning my basic addition and subtraction in Mohawk right now, so that'll be
There you
where
go.
my time goes.
Is that what you think you're going to allocate? Is
I'm not sure where I'll do. I've been working on my knots lately too. I've got a bushcraft book, and I've been kind of trying to
There
make
you
sure
go.
my knots are tight. Um, so yeah, I don't know. I'll come up with something for sure. That sounds good.
Come
So
up with something and then spend at least 6 days. You can have a night off, of course.
mm,
And then again, you can determine how much time you want to invest in it, as long as you're having the mindful approach of trying to sit down and learn something.
yeah, I think that mindfulness piece is key, right? Like sitting down, what are you doing? What is the intention? And actually doing it. So like when I do knots, I try to sit there and actually look at the knots and feel the rope and be mindful of what I'm doing. It's almost like a meditation exercise at times, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, I think being mindful and doing something like that. You know, I'm gonna one up you. My phone screen time has been getting bad again, out of hand. Mostly just frivolous stuff and nothing really productive, for the most part. Some of it is just looking up baby names, but I'm also going to I'm going to look at my phone, see what my average daily time of phone use is, and I'm going to half it for this week. So whatever it is, if it's 2 hours, I'm permitting myself an hour of use a day. If it's 3 hours, it's 90 minutes or whatever it is, I'm going to half it because I'm spending too much time. And I think half is an achievable measure.
You know what? I'm going to do that, but I'm going to lag a week behind. I think that's something I should definitely consider doing next week, but give myself this week to track all the data and
Hey, you
see.
got an iPhone. Your data's already there, man.
Is it already there?
Yeah.
How do
So,
you?
okay. So if you pull up your phone, which we both have right beside us because we're hooked,
Yes.
and then
Is it
you have an
settings?
iPhone, eh? No, all you do is you swipe to the left where it has like the top stories and app suggestions and all that stuff, right? Do you see
Yeah.
that?
Yeah.
And then go down and it'll say screen time.
Oh, there it is.
What's your screen time today?
Um, I don't want to say online. Just kidding.
Put it out there, man. What is that?
Oh, that's the
13,
weather.
13 degrees in Ottawa.
13 degrees in time. 4 hours and 59 minutes.
Holy, yeah. I'm here. I'll show you mine too, in the interest of transparency. I don't know if that's coming up.
2 hours, 54 minutes. Okay.
Okay, so I'm going down to 90 minutes a day max.
Oh my God. 5 hours a day.
You might need to knock off 60%.
Good Lord. What breaks it down for you?
Yeah. So I mean, if you're sitting there listening to a podcast and your thing's open, I mean, whatever, you're listening to an hour podcast, it's not screen time. But a lot of mine, like if I pull mine up, it was reading and research, or reading and reference. I had 17 minutes social networking. That's that Reddit. Damn Reddit. Creativity. I'm not sure what the creativity on here is. And a lot of pictures. I was playing some guitar today, and I have recordings of some old songs. So I'll play that, and I'll try to play along with it, so I don't forget it. So that was some time spent on that. But yeah,
Okay.
it's like Wordscapes, Podbean, Reddit, photos, and it's just like the culmination of all those little pieces add up so quick. So
Yep.
I'm gonna half my phone time from what that phone says today, which is 3 hours. I'm gonna cut it to at least 90 minutes tops as a third part to this challenge.
For every day, 90 minutes a day.
Yeah, 90 minutes a day.
See, I don't know why I was so shocked for my 5 hours. I spent the whole day sitting in the hammock playing video games, so I don't know why I was so shocked. But yeah, I mean, Sunday is an exceptional day. That's the Lord's day of rest.
Yeah, and screen.
But yeah, I do agree. 5 hours definitely is an excessive amount of screen time. Oh my God.
That's almost
90 minutes sounds fair.
Yeah. Okay. You gonna keep it at 9 minutes too? Try and do that.
Yeah. God. Yeah.
And you know what I find too, the difference is, even though this is screen time, like hopping on my computer and doing stuff, I find I'm more productive with a computer for some reason. Like the genuine research and the distraction is a lot different. I think there's too many apps, and again, it's just one thumb swipe away and a tap to pull up a game, Wordscapes or Sudoku, whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
So I'm not saying like I'm going to cut out completely, because I still got work to do on the computer. That's not going to change, but that's going to be productive. As far as my phone, 99% of the time I'm not that productive on it. So yeah, 90 minutes. That's my goal every day. I hope I don't fail it right off the hop tomorrow.
Okay. Well, that encourages us to allocate more time for our skills.
Yeah, there you go. Exactly. Put the phone down, pick up the bushcraft skills book. All right. So we got our challenges: increase water, learn a new skill or refine a skill, and put down the phone.
So I think we're going to use that hashtag RTB weekly challenge. If anybody wants to hop in, send a picture, any comments they want to do, send it to our personal Facebooks or Instagrams. You don't have Facebook, but we do have a Raise the Bar podcast on Instagram. If you guys want to interact with us there, we're checking it out probably every other day.
Yeah. Are you a moderator on that still?
Yep.
Perfect. All right. Maybe we'll come up with a rotating check-in schedule.
Yeah, I'll be on call.
That's going too far. I need less on call in my life, not more.
No, I know.
All right, bud. Well, I think that's it for me. It's getting late. I'm gonna go get some skill time in, practice my sleeping.
Sweet deal, buddy. I appreciate it.
Okay, man. You take care. Stay cool. Wash your hands. Oh, just while we're having this, I think you did something really, beautiful last week in dedicating the episode. I'd like to do the same this week for all the people out there doing their parts to stay safe, to protect the people, working on the front line and putting a little bit of positivity into the world. I dedicate this episode to them because I think, those are the kind of pieces of light that we need in this world. And we're pretty lucky to have the helpers that we do. We talked about a lot of negativity, but there is a lot of people doing a lot of good things out there. And I want to end on a good note and thanking everyone and to try and keep up the good fight.
Absolutely. Beautifully said. And I agree. Shout out to the leadership that are actually doing something about this for the people that have the luxury to stay at home. I'm especially thinking of our leadership here in Shigang. Yeah, it's just an incredible thing what these people do for us. And while we're sitting at home quarantining, these are the guys on the front line organizing the positive push for that reminder.
Yeah. All right, man. Okay. You take it easy. Have a good night.
All right, buddy. Till next week.
Peace.